Mara's old piano had been silent for years, its ivory keys gathering dust in the corner of her small apartment. It had been her grandmother's, a treasured heirloom, but Mara hadn't touched it since her grandmother passed away. Tonight, however, something drew her to it. The air in the apartment felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The clock ticked past midnight, and an unnatural chill seeped into the room. Almost in a trance, Mara sat at the bench and placed her fingers on the keys. She began to play an old lullaby her grandmother used to hum, the melody awkward at first as she reacquainted herself with the instrument. But as she played, the notes seemed to smooth themselves out as if the piano were guiding her. A sense of comfort washed over her, a fleeting nostalgia. Then, the keys began playing on their own. Mara's hands froze, but the piano continued. The lullaby twisted into a discordant dirge, a sound that clawed at her ears and sent her heart racing. She tried to stand, but something held her in place, an invisible weight pressing her to the bench. The air grew colder, and a soft voice began to hum along with the twisted tune. It was faint at first, barely audible, but it grew louder, closer. It was her grandmother's voice. "Granny?" Mara whispered, her breath fogging in the icy air. A shadow moved in the corner of the room, a shape forming from the darkness itself. It wore her grandmother's face, but the eyes were hollow, voids that seemed to drink in the dim light of the room. "You stopped playing," the figure said, its voice layered with a low, guttural tone. Mara trembled, her hands gripping the bench. I didn't mean to." "You left me," the figure hissed. Its mouth stretched unnaturally wide as the lullaby swelled to a deafening crescendo. The keys began to bleed, crimson dripping onto the floor. Mara screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the music. The figure lunged, and the last thing Mara saw was her grandmother's face twisting into something unspeakable. When the neighbors finally called the police the next morning, they found Mara slumped over the piano, her fingers still pressed to the keys. The piano was silent, but faintly etched into the wood was a single phrase. "Don't stop playing."